Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm so excited to welcome actor, writer, director Sam Haft to the podcast. Welcome, Sam.
Great to be here.
Really excited to be chatting with you. So, to just dive on in, I wanted to know for you, Sam, what were some of your musical influences growing up, whether that be artists, genres, albums?
Oh, wow. I have a long list, and the one that normally I think people find the most surprising as a songwriter influence is Tim Minchin, who is an Australian musical comedian who has since gone on to now write the music for a couple musicals. He did the music for Matilda, the musical, and the Groundhog Day musical as well. But I've been following his career for a very long time, and I've just found his experimentation with genre and the way that he will use humor but not necessarily make the music is not in service to the joke, but rather the joke is in service to the music. I found that very, very inspiring to the sort of content that I create. And I would say even before I was aware of, say, Flight of the Conchords, which is another music comedy act that I would say is leans harder on music than they do on comedy. I was aware of Tim Minchin, and he was just sort of a very big influence for me. Beyond that, I deeply, deeply love a band called Jellyfish, which I was introduced to, I want to say around 2015 or 2016. And then to go back further than that, we'd go back way, way further to a lot of acts that rose out of the 60s and 70s. I'm a huge fan of David Bowie. I'm a very big fan of this garage rock band out of Seattle in the early 60s called the Sonics, who I think are just like the coolest, most badass rock band of their time. And I'm a huge fan of the Muppets, and that also definitely plays a role.
Oh, amazing. So a nice, like, eclectic variety of things. Who's your favorite Muppet? I gotta know.
This is going to be a very basic answer, but I feel like as I've grown up, I have gone from appreciating the wacky Muppets to just straight up Kermit, straight down the middle. It's the Muppets are so much to handle that to play the comedic straight man to the Muppets feels like kind of the most impressive job. And so I adore Kermit, and Kermit is in so many ways the heart of the Muppets. And I, if I would be starstruck meeting any Muppet, if I were to meet a fully, articulated Kermit, I would probably cry.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Of course, Kermit's incredible. I love Kermit, and personally, I always loved growing up actually Scooter too. He's like,
Scooter's great.
yeah.
Scooter, I feel like Scooter has always been, I would like to think that I'm a Kermit, but in reality, I'm probably a Scooter. I am addicted to work, and I love working. I'm definitely, kind of a workaholic in that Scootery way, and I'm a little bit annoying too. So I feel like Scooter probably represents me more than Kermit. But what I appreciate so much about Kermit is that he's always just barely holding his shit together, and
Yes,
I think we can all relate to that.
absolutely. And then of course, the music, Rainbow Connection, all these iconic songs. It's not even
Absolutely.
green. Yeah, amazing.
And
Um,
I would say, in spite of the fact that much of the music was Paul Williams, I would describe Muppet music as its own kind of niche subgenre. That I would never say like, man, I'm a massive Paul Williams fan. I'm a fan of Paul Williams, but I would describe myself more as a massive Muppet music fan.
right. And obviously, it's a huge franchise. It's so vast with the shows, movies, everything. So,
Yes.
of course it has a huge influence in a lot of pop culture and everything, so that's really cool. And I know also you're an actor as well, so did you go to school for acting and writing or that kind of stuff?
So my school journey was long and full of terrors. In high school, I went to three different high schools. I left after sophomore year to go to another school, and then at that school I was expelled like 3 months in, and I was doing my sophomore year for the second time because their junior year was full. So I ended up getting expelled out of my second consecutive sophomore year, which meant I had to finish my sophomore year at a third school. So I spent, 2 years in three schools as a high school sophomore. And then I was having a hard time figuring out what it is I wanted to do in college, because as is the case now, I like to wear a lot of hats. There were a lot of different things I wanted to do. I was interested in graphic design. I was interested in music, and I was interested in like creative writing. And at the time, when I was graduating high school, I was dating a girl who was also in music, and her heart was set on going to SUNY Purchase, which is a state school with a particularly great music program in New York. And at the time, I also wanted to do music, and I had auditioned for and then was accepted to the Berklee School of Music in Boston. I turned it down so that I could go to college with my high school sweetheart, who maybe a couple months after that found out she was waitlisted at the school, decided to take a gap year, and then dumped me like a month into the school year.
Oh,
So it was definitely, I don't know that my logic for why I made the choice was particularly sound, but I was like an 18-year-old, and we're all dumbasses. Um, and so I ended up at Purchase, but not for music, because at the time that I found out that like this is where the place where we could go to school together, I believe the music auditions were closed or like right about to close. So I wanted to get into some kind of conservatory program. Just I don't know, maybe I was too full of myself to think like I don't want to do a BA, I want to do a BFA and feel special. And one of the programs that was accepting people was their playwriting program, or they called it the dramatic writing program. So it's playwriting, screenwriting, TV, so on, but mainly focused on theater. And I hadn't written a play before, but I'd done a lot of creative writing. So I wrote a play, I sent it in, and I found out later that I was the only person that applied to that program with a comedy. And generally, these high school playwrights take themselves quite seriously, and do say like, oh, I'm going to do something inspired by Shepard or Pinter, or that kind of thing. Whereas I was always like a comedy dork. I used to go to sleep listening to comedy records instead of music, and so I wanted to do something silly, and so I did. I I think my application piece was about how the conspiracy theory that Stevie Wonder is not actually blind, and it was called Stevie Wonder is an Asshole. And my interview for college consisted of a phone call from the dean of the program, which started, I just want to know, are you serious, man? And after confirming, like, yes, like I actually like I like this and I would like to do this, I was accepted to the program, and I was there. It was not a good time to be at a state school, because I'm really giving you my life story here. It was not a good
oh,
time to be at a state school because the 2008 recession had just hit, and that trickled into state and municipal budgets, and that hit schools. So about a year in, or maybe it was a year and a half, they said, hey, we're going to have to fire half of the staff of the dramatic writing program, and we will fold the dramatic writing program into the BA in theater. And I don't remember if it was clear whether or not I'd be grandfathered into a BFA or if I'd just be like a theater BA. And I was already like starting to get disenchanted by it. And I was already starting to get a little bit of work in just acting and voiceover acting in New York, and Purchase was in White Plains, and it was really inconvenient to go back and forth to get work, to get acting work. So I just thought, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna leave this school. Maybe I'll go back to school, maybe I won't, but it's so hard to keep this up. And like I had half a semester that I lost to like a terrible bout with mono. It was just like it wasn't going great. So I went home and I just kind of worked for about a semester, or maybe it was a full year. And then I decided it was time to go back to school, that I'd, killed enough time. And I reached out to the new school, which was one of the places that I had been accepted when I had applied to college initially. And I just asked if they would allow me to just be accepted again instead of having to apply over again. And they just asked me to write an essay and said that they would just keep the rest of my application as it is. I did. I went there for playwriting for about another year, year and a half. But by this point, being in New York City all the time, I had so much more of an opportunity to grow my career as a performer that I got so busy that I was just asking myself the question, what am I still doing in school? That, like I'm in school so that I can work in entertainment, and I'm currently working in entertainment and it's taking me away from school. So at that point, I wrapped up at the new school and just kept on acting. And there was a brief moment in time at which I was like, you know what? I'm going to try school again. And I went to Columbia for a semester and then decided it was a mistake. And it was way too expensive. And I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. And that was it. But like all of college was all like playwriting, playwriting, playwriting. I'm going to be a playwright. I'm going to be a screenwriter. That was it. In spite of the fact that professionally, mainly I was performing. But it was always, I feel like, a key part of my identity was being a writer, which is something that's only really started to change recently. And this is, man, I am not shutting up. Do you,
No, please,
do you want
please.
me to redirect here because I can just keep it going?
No, finish your thought, please.
Okay. I spent a very long time identifying myself as a writer.
Mm.
And that was a very core part of my identity. And no matter how well other stuff was going, like voiceover and performing and music, I was never as invested in that success because it had nothing to do with how I identified myself. And it's only recently that I've come to start describing myself more as a songwriter, that I've been allowing myself to feel better about the stuff that I've done. Because, as a writer, I've done some cool stuff, like I've sold a couple projects, I've gotten paid to do it, professionally in the entertainment business, and that's exciting. But like, I can't point to anything and say, like, see that, there's a thing I wrote that you can go and watch. And I feel like that self-esteem wise was not great for me. That it was like the thing I identify as, I don't feel, you know, important or cool as, or whatever it is. And now starting to identify myself more as a songwriter, I get to say, like, not only do I, you know, look at myself as a songwriter, I can look at myself as like a fairly successful songwriter. And that has certainly made a difference in my mental health.
That's really wonderful to hear. And I really appreciate you sharing that story because sometimes people think they know what they want, and then on that path, it leads you to other things. So honestly, that's really inspiring to hear, Sam. That's great that what you're doing is like you're feeding your own, honestly, it may sound odd to say, but like your soul in a sense, like your own creative soul. So that's really, really wonderful to hear.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so I know you had said that essentially more recently you feel more as a songwriter rather than a writer. So with that in mind, I'd love to hear about, of course, the Living Tombstone. So first off, how did you meet your collaborator? I don't want to mispronounce his name. Is it Yoav?
Yoav. Yeah.
Yoav Landau. Yeah.
Yes. So much of what happens, I think, in most people's careers, in interviews, people like to be like, it's all hard work, and like, it's randomness. It's the random number generator is responsible for 99% of anyone's success. And in this case, the crazy random happenstance was that we have a mutual friend named Brittany Lauda, who is an anime voice actor. She is brilliant. And Brittany Lauda was having a going away party in New York. And Yoav had been in New York for maybe 5 days at this point. But Brittany was someone who he knew from the Brony days. And Brittany was someone who I knew totally separately from like the amateur voice acting forum days. And so we both happened to get invited to this karaoke going away party for her and her then boyfriend Matt Shipman, who were moving to Texas together to, pursue more anime voice acting in Texas. And had we not both been there, there is no reason Yoav and I would have ever met, ever. And he'd only been in the city for a couple of days. I almost didn't go to the party, but then I also thought it would kind of be polite for me to go because I knew that a mutual friend of Brittany's and mine named Lisa, who was directing Pokemon at the time, that I was just starting to get involved in. Like, it was a number of things that I was like, I better just show my face for like an hour and like it's I'd known Brittany for a really long time, and I was gonna miss her, and I was it was a number of things that it was like I should show up. And it just so happened that my time at this karaoke party intersected with Yoav's time at this karaoke party. We were kind of on the same wavelength musically. I introduced myself to him, he introduced himself to me, mentioned that he had just moved to New York and that he did music, and we both came to the conclusion that we needed a music studio space to do some work. And from there, kind of thought, hey, what if we get a space together? That way, we don't need to, we can keep each other accountable and productive if we're working in the same space. And at the time, like I had just released or was about to release a comedy music album that I had with my comedy band called Sam and Bill, and it was quite well received and did pretty well. And so I was like, oh man, I've got to do some more stuff for this, and I'm gonna need space to do music, and like I also do some like video sketch comedy type stuff, and I need a place to edit. And he needed a place to produce music as the Living Tombstone. And so we were just kind of in each other's space, being friends with each other. And pretty soon it became hard to not be involved in each other's stuff. There was a track with Sam and Bill that we were asked to do a version of it for the end credits for some horror movie. And Yoav came in and sort of like produced or remixed it. Yoav did that Jump Up Superstar cover as the Living Tombstone, and I did some like vocal harmonies on it. And then the real turning point with Yoav and I was a song called My Ordinary Life, where Yoav asked me formally to like, hey, like we should write a song together. And I came over to his apartment. We ordered some chicken. He played me this really cool loop of like a flute with a drum beat under it. And from there, we just like we put the song together, and it was obviously like incredibly well received. And that was the beginning of Yoav and I as co-writers. And from there, you know, we from there I feel like I kind of became a go-to helper songwriting wise for a while. And then we sort of formalized me being part of the Living Tombstone in, I want to say, 2018.
Oh wow. Oh cool. So it's funny. I was like looking it up online, like on YouTube and everything, and I saw like it goes back like 10 years. That like
Oh
so
yeah.
that's too funny. So the first song I checked out was My Ordinary Life, and
Mm.
I'll tell you my first thought was, oh, this is delightfully weird. Like I just
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
I think that's, even before I was involved, I think part of the appeal of the Living Tombstone
Mm.
musically is that it really is musically quite unconventional. And it was something that drew me to Yoav as a collaborator, and something I appreciate about him to this day is the fact that he is just not there are a million people that I've worked with who write songs on the wavelength that I am used to writing songs. And Yoav is on his own wavelength that is so, it's just like esoteric and brilliant. And part of that is that his influences culturally are different. He's not from the US. He grew up listening to like a very different musical bouquet, and that shows in his work. But part of it is also like it's just his mind, and he does really interesting things with melody because he conceptualizes of a song melody first. And so the song will have to grow to fit the melody, as opposed to the way most people write songs and the way that I historically wrote songs, which is that the melody exists to be the most catchy top line over the chord progression, whereas he works completely the other way around, and it just creates these very odd and inspired and really cool melodies and really interesting music.
Absolutely. And then, of course, paired with the visuals. So, is that something that is secondary in terms of, okay, we got this melody and then collaborating with people and artists for the visuals and that kind of stuff?
Well, the music does always come first, but I have described us not as a music act, but as a music video act.
Mm.
In that we are very audiovisual. We are very visual thinkers. And if you were to watch Yoav compose, he's a very visual composer. You know, he's not tapping away on like a piano keyboard. He is moving around shapes of notes in like a note matrix where it's a very visual mathematic process, and I think that carries over to the content. And part of it is to be a music artist who first made his name on YouTube, which is a visual platform. There's just no ignoring it. Every song needs to have a music video, which is really really unusual for a music act. I mean, that almost is never the case. It's like, you do 2 or 3 music videos maybe per album, but you would never say every single song I release has to have its own fully produced video.
Right. That's what, of course, makes it so unique and what makes you guys stand out because obviously there's so much content out there nowadays. So that's really fantastic that you have this huge success with it. So that's really, really cool.
Thank you.
And where's the name come from too, Living Tombstone? I love just like the oxymoron of that
Yes.
too.
So obviously, I didn't come up with it. Yoav did in
Mm.
2011, and he was watching an anime called Black Lagoon, which I haven't seen, but it has to do with like mercenaries. And he conceived of like a gang of mercenaries that were like, oh, we could all die tomorrow, but we're also like, in addition to being mercenaries, we moonlight as a band. And he came up with the name The Living Tombstone for that. And that didn't end up being what the Living Tombstone was. Obviously, it ended up being like him alone and then the two of us. It didn't start off as a band as he had initially conceived of it, but the name was so good and memorable that he just started making music under that name, and it caught on.
That's really, really cool. And I know like sometimes it's a silly thing to ask, but do you have like personally a favorite song to date that you guys worked on?
Yes, yeah. Oh, I mean, I have a bunch of favorites that are not released yet, and in terms of the stuff that we've done together, I'm incredibly proud of the song Love I Need, the song Longtime Friends, the song Drunk, the song I Want to Be a Machine. I love that one. It's the great thing about the Living Tombstone is that like the lines of genre are deeply blurred, so we get to make so many different kinds of music. And that, if you're someone like me who like one of my early influences, as I said at the very beginning of this, Tim Minchin, feel defined by genre. It's like a tasting menu. It's great.
Right. I love that. I do love Love I Need 'cause I even love the aesthetic, like the video game, like with
Mm.
that with the video. I do also really love Hit the Snooze. I thought that one was
Hit the
great.
Snooze is
That's
great,
great.
and I love that video.
Because you're really capturing the anxiety of the it's like fantastic. And I just love how it ends with fuck. Like just
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I'd love to ask you about your thoughts on the importance of collaboration in creativity and how that enhances creativity because of course it's like, a partnership and sharing ideas, things like that.
Absolutely. And for me, collaboration has been essential to my history as a creator. I've always sought to find people to collaborate with, for a couple reasons. One is that, in spite of the fact that I can occasionally be a bit of a control freak, like my ego is not that big. Like I don't presume that I have all the right answers all the time, and it is so helpful, particularly for me as someone who has like ADHD, and it's like it can be tough to like stare at a blank page or like get to some juncture in a piece of work and not know what to do next. It's helpful to have friends along the way who can say, "Oh, after this we should try this," and that kind of thing. But beyond that, there is a component to it where it's always better than the sum of its parts, because I will have idea A and say Yoav will have idea B, and those ideas could be completely contradictory to each other, but if we both feel very strongly about them, we're eventually going to arrive at idea C, which takes the best of both worlds, and is something that neither of us would have come up with on our own.
Right. So then in a sense, of course, something that's like better, and as you just said, better than the sum of its parts. That's really
Yeah.
cool too. I'd love to ask you too, kind of on the flip side of that, what do you do when like you're stuck in a sense, like some kind of creative block? Like what do you do to find inspiration? Do you step away? Do you listen to other things, or is it just working with your partner, things like that?
So I find that in a partnership you get less stuck less often. That's part of it. But I think when we do get stuck, we just kind of leave something alone for a little bit and just kind of like live life for a second. And then eventually it'll come to us. You know, there is no such thing as an unsolvable puzzle. Music, there are only 12 notes in music. Well, there are only 12 full, step notes in
Mm.
music. I'm not trying to, anger the Jacob Colliers of the world. We're doing microtonal music. But, at the end of the day, if you have, oh, this is going to sound so wishy-washy, but I was going to be like, if you are a musician at heart, music is never truly hard. And so you never have to leave something for a long time. And there will be times that we take something and we shelf it just because like we don't know what even we're gonna do with it. And it's not like we have some purpose to get it out. And then months later, it'll be like, oh, should we do a song about this? Oh, hey, wait, remember this melody sketch that we had from a couple months ago? We have a lot of works in progress at any given time that we like to pull from.
That's the beauty of creativity, the fluidity of it, and that you never know when inspiration is going to strike, when the muse is going to speak to you. So yeah, that's really cool. And so, of course, so switching gears now, of course, I got to talk to you about Helluva Boss, which I absolutely adore. I started watching it last August, and I'm so excited that season two recently started. So
Yes.
how did you come to be involved on the project?
So this is another Yoav thing where when we moved to California at Yoav's housewarming, I met a number of his friends in LA who many of whom he knew from like the Newgrounds days, and one of them was Vivian Medrano, who's the creator of Helluva Boss and Has Been Hotel. And something that I only remembered quite recently because I was looking for emails between Viv and I don't remember what email I was looking for, and I clicked oldest in Gmail, is that I actually at some point I think was trying to get involved with the pilot of Has Been Hotel, back in like 2016 or whatever it was. And like it was just like, oh, there was some kind of call for talent on Newgrounds or something like that, or like maybe someone posted on Twitter like, hey, looking for voice actors or that kind of thing. But it's something that I had totally forgotten about, and I'm sure got, was just like, you send a million emails like that. So at no point afterwards was it like, well, I'm never going to run into this person. But then I did. And we met at Yoav's housewarming party. And of particular interest at the time, when we sort of connected about our backgrounds and the kind of stuff we were working on, of particular interest at the time was the fact that I had this music comedy album, the Sam and Bill record that I mentioned that did quite well. And, she has a comedy musical. And I said, I'd love to be involved. Let me know. And she said, I would love for you to be involved. And so the first thing that she had me work on was a song called You Will Be Okay, which was sort of a lullaby from a character called Stolas to his child. And at the time, I also had a 1-year-old. So I had a lot personally to draw from. And so that song was particularly quite personal to me because, as a new father and, someone who just like desperately wanted my child to be all right in life, the message was very easy to tap into. And that song was not just received by Vivian quite well, but was received by the internet quite well. I've had people reach out of the woodwork, people who I hadn't talked to in years. Someone reached out to me maybe last year or the year before saying that a friend of theirs passed away, and at the memorial they played that song. I mean, like the reach that has had, I credit entirely to the fact that it was coming from such a real place emotionally. But that was a hell of a song to pun intended, to kick off working with Vivian. And then from then it was stuff that was like a little bit more silly and comedy forward. And I think it's just I think I credit my background as a playwright and as a storyteller to the fact that I have a particular attachment or I am, I don't want to say aptitude and sound like, full of myself, but like I definitely feel like I connect with very well the concept of creating music for characters to that are part of a story. I think it taps into my background as a storyteller in addition to my background as a songwriter. And so, that has been a really incredible partnership. And, in addition to between the first and second season, I mean, probably 20, 21, 22 songs on Helluva Boss, and this is public knowledge now. It was announced that I was working on all the songs for Has Been Hotel, her season of that. And I honestly, like, I don't credit it to talent or anything. I just credit it to consistency. And I think, part of it is like being able to be there and meet deadlines and like just knowing enough about the project that I don't need to ask, oh, who's this character again? And like I just having a familiarity with her world and an aptitude for writing in that world already, I think was probably the main. I mean, I haven't asked why she asked me, but I would assume that that was the reason.
That's really, really incredible. I think that's so amazing that that song "You Will Be Okay" was your first contribution to the series. Allow me to echo, like to like add to the voices of many saying, "Utterly beautiful song. It's made me tear up. It gets the job done, of being very comforting and beautiful ballad within the story of Stola singing to his daughter Octavia, which is beautiful."
Well, I am a real sucker for parent stuff, particularly daddy issues. Oh man, like that's the kind of stuff that in like a movie or TV show will just like turn the floodgates on.
That's fantastic. I'm
Yeah,
like,
open the floodgates rather. Yeah.
right. And then, of course, like on the flip side of that, you got fantastic songs like Vacate a Bone Town and
Yeah.
Strikers. I
That
love
was
that too.
That was a blast. And that what was funny was like "Vacate a Bone Town" was the second song I did for Vivian. So I got to, or maybe "My World Is Burning Down Around Me" was the second, but that wasn't really like a full song. That was just kind of like a clip of a thing that Octavia's listening to on her iPad or whatever. iPod got him old. And but the second full song that I got to do was "Vacate a Bone Town." And it gave me a chance to like really flex my comedy muscle of like I am a logophile, is that the term, lover of words, and I love like really fucked up wording that like sticks with you. So like stuff like even the title "Vacate a Bone Town," or there's a line in that I made me laugh. Like I had a hard time getting through directing Christina V on that one, which is "Souls out, holes out. How does it smell?" Just like I love just outrageously worded comedy music. And I pay a lot of attention to how funny the wording can be when I'm trying to make funny music. So that was a real it was a great it was a I just feel like I lucked out. It's again, it's the random number generator where like the first song that Vivian asked me to do is like about fragile fatherhood, and that the second song that she asks me to do is just like a scatological horned up comedy word thing. Like if they were completely different songs that she asked me to do at the start of this, it may not be that we would still be working together. But I think, you know, it started on such a strong note, and I've only gotten better as a songwriter since then. And so I feel like Helluva Boss has been a very big part of my growth as a songwriter, of being able to hear like, hey, I need this kind of song with this kind of vibe to accomplish this kind of thing, and I need it relatively soon. And being able to like sit down and execute that has been a real, it's been a major thing to learn how to do. And I feel so lucky that my ability to learn to do that came from this incredible, creative collaboration, as opposed to, doing it when I was like 18 in music school. I much rather things unfolded the way that they have.
That's really, really amazing. And so you've alluded to this too, how you basically have, you get to do the comedic songs, which are amazing. You get to do the emotional songs too. And so I'm curious to know a little bit about kind of the process of how you approach writing a new song for Helluva or, just generally speaking. So is it kind of starting at a point of, okay, the character, what do they want in this scene, that kind of stuff? Like you approach it from like a story standpoint, just kind of how you approach things.
Sure. One of the great advantages to writing music for Vivienne's projects is that she is a lover of musicals and really has a great internal sense in a script of where a song should go. Those heightened moments of, you know, a character is feeling so much that a song needs to happen here, or there is something that the characters can't speak aloud, but we need to feel as an audience that means a song should go here. Or even just, in the case of Verosika, this character is a pop star, and here's an opportunity for her to be a pop star. She's got a really great sense of where the songs should go from the very beginning. And then so from there, my sense of it is that she kind of runs down all these locations where songs go, will collect a bundle of them and tell me, hey, I need a song where character A wants this, and here is the environmental situation, and here is the character's kind of musical aesthetic, and so here is the vibe that I'm going for. And I will get essentially kind of a sense of vibe, a sense of what the song needs to accomplish or communicate, and also a sense of how long the song should be. And then from there, I'm off to the races.
That's really cool. So then I assume it's kind of like you record a demo, and then do you work specifically with each voice actor and like run through the song or like in terms of like when they actually record it?
So yeah, this is something that I think I might actually start doing differently into season 3, but certainly up through season 2, the working with the voice actors was something that really only happened during their recording, where Richard Horvitz is the dialogue director, but I for my songs, and generally just for my songs, I would direct the musical performance. And so there's that kind of like directing a certain performance that I want out of the voice actor. But I think for season 3, there are definitely going to be tracks in which I'd like to spend some time with the voice actor, making sure everything sits really nicely in like that we're in the absolute optimal key, and that like they're feeling like really connected emotionally with the song and that kind of thing. I'm very excited to do that too, because I mean, we've been doing Helluva Boss for over 2 years now. Well, almost, no, it's almost the 2 year anniversary, I think. But obviously, like the songs have been worked on in advance of the beginning of the show coming out. So it's been a while, and I know these cast members so well now, like they're kind of extended work family. So it's always just like a pleasure to spend time with those cast members and like, you know, make them great music where they sound awesome.
So I'm wondering if like you have perhaps a favorite character to write music for. I would assume possibly Stolas with like his emotional range that we've seen thus far in the show, or no?
Stolas is up there, definitely, but it's I almost feel the opposite way, not in like, oh, I I guess how I feel is I want to be able to write for every character. And so, although I do have characters that I feel like I know their musical voice quite well, Stolas is one of them. But there are also characters where it's like, man, I would love to write another song for this character or that character. I mean, one of them is Verosika. I really want to write another, just like dark, funny slut pop song. Oh, that would be great. So it's everybody. And obviously, like I like everyone in the world, I fucking adore Richard Horvitz, and
Mhm.
I want to make him sing more.
I absolutely love Moxie's Bad Trip with his singing and like the Phantom of the Opera aesthetic with that. And then of course the fantastic lyric, the world is Uranus, peg it with honesty.
Oh yeah,
Fucking great.
beautiful, beautiful symbolism.
It's so good. But then, as you've said, how music in that sense, like, goes into the character's subconscious in a way, and of course, like the dark stuff with Blitz in that episode in particular. And I love what you said at the season 2 watch party with the cast. You said basically that Blitz sees Stolas in his subconscious, seeing Stolas as like he's, I don't know, like their dynamic basically.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Like,
To sort of rephrase what I said then is that as an audience, we have a very different view of Stolas than Blitz does. As an audience, we see Stolas as this sort of fragile, imprisoned, yet, obviously spiritually powerful, but like deeply vulnerable and effete gentleman. Well, owl demon.
mhm.
And Blitz in his subconscious in that sequence, and I can't take credit for the golden shackles that appear around Blitz's wrists, and the fact that it is Stolas holding the leash there. That's all Vivian and Spindlehorse, but it is really this excellent view into Blitz's mind, in which Stolas has all the power, and of course he does. There are, you know, imps and Goetia and whatever don't exist in the real world. But in Blitz's world, there is a real social and caste disconnect between them that it's very clear how present it is in Blitz's mind when we see into his mind in that sequence.
Yeah, you put it so eloquently. I think that's so interesting to see. And I don't want to like, is there anything you can tease about upcoming season and musically? Anything you could kind of tease?
I cannot tell you anything that has not been publicly said in another venue, but stuff that has been said in other streams that I think people are probably looking forward to is that I've mentioned that there was a good bit of Danny Elfman-esque music in this season that I think is quite exciting. Well, one example of that is in 201 is Stolas Sings, which I did with the inimitable, lovely Jefferson Friedman. I think I also mentioned the fact that there is that the song that I have had the most trouble with making for this show, other than Moxie's Bad Trip, or has replaced Moxie's Bad Trip as the song that gave me the most trouble, is a song with Fizzaroli, and it is just a turducken of randomness, and it was really, really hard to execute. And people will people will see why.
Sometimes the hardest things end up being like the most well received, though. Because I know, for instance, not to veer off too much, but Lin-Manuel Miranda said he had such a hard time figuring out the song "We Don't Talk About Bruno," and like look at
Mm,
that now. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but it's, normally when something's hard to figure out, it's just because it's got a lot of moving parts. And this was definitely a song like that I think Alex and I have both alluded to this song in a stream we did together it was like a music of Helluva Boss stream that we did on Vivian's channel a while ago.
Nice. That's exciting. So I look forward to more as the season progresses.
Oh,
So
yes.
I know, of course, you guys also do signings and stuff too, which I got to get a print. I got to just,
Oh, yeah.
it's fun.
Oh, well,
Uh,
actually, here's a question. When is this episode supposed to come out?
this is going to come out September, like mid-September. In like,
Okay.
so yeah, because I know you got a signing coming up.
I do. I have
Oh,
one this
yeah.
Sunday. I was going to say, oh, if your turnaround is like a couple days,
Uh,
let me plug that.
I
Well,
know.
it has come and gone, and I'm going to assume it
Yeah.
went amazing.
Those are always just fun to watch. So I recommend for any Helluva Boss fan, check out those signings like on Instagram and YouTube too, yeah, with Streamily.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact is, like as a cast and crew, like we do really have like pretty great chemistry, and that's so unusual.
Well, honestly, like just as a viewer of all this, it's you feel all the love and respect and joy you guys have when you're all together, and like you see it's mutual. Like everyone respects and admires everyone's talent. And again, it's a collaboration. That's what makes it so fun as fans to watch it. So again, it's just like,
Absolutely.
so much
And I
love.
think that comes from the project's roots as like this DIY, like, here is my vision, and I'm going to gather together this ragtag group of rogues to execute it. And like, all the trials and tribulations therein, like they bond you guys. And everyone, I mean, and I think part of what makes the show so infectious is that you can tell that everyone's having a great time.
Definitely. And again, it just makes it that much more enjoyable and fun, which is fantastic. And again, for me personally, like I love all the comedic stuff like within the show, of course, too. But for me, what resonates the most are like those emotional moments that we see and like those poignant, heartbreaking, and human moments that makes it more compelling and fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your appreciation.
Yeah, so definitely. Okay, so as we're going to be wrapping up, I have just a couple of kind of rapid fire
Yeah,
questions.
lightning round. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So, favorite place you've traveled to?
I'm gonna say Japan.
Oh, amazing. And what's like number one place you'd like to visit someday?
Iceland.
Oh, cool. Nice. Okay, and favorite concert?
Favorite concert? Flight of the Conchords.
Nice. Favorite musical?
Oh, that's tough. Maybe Bat Boy the musical.
Oh, cool. Okay, show you're currently watching.
I am just about to start Better Call Saul because I just finished The Sandman.
Oh, nice. I know that show just recently ended too, and it was
Yes,
like
yeah.
people loved it. Yeah. Okay, what's like your comfort food?
Pasta, any kind of pasta, but I'm also like a massive pasta snob because of how much pasta I eat.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. And do you have like a go-to song to listen to that kind of like amps you up and be like, fuck yes?
This is gonna sound fucked up, but I promise it's not fucked up. 99% of the time, the music I listen to is whatever music I am working on. So, unfortunately, I am my most played artist. It's just like it's to be writing music all the time. Like I've just got to get in the headspace of it, and so most of the time, that is what I have to listen to do that.
Nice. So one more. What's like your favorite fictional character or like one that's kind of you see yourself just like a favorite fictional character that's like a big influence in your life?
Oh
One
God,
you
I mean,
relate
you know
to?
what? We're gonna go right back to Kermit the Frog here.
I love it. I love coming full circle. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure. So one last thing I always love asking is what's like a favorite or like best piece of advice you've been given, whether just life advice or just kind of anything in general, like advice?
As far as advice that I've been given, one of
Hmm.
my favorite pieces of advice, and I might be getting this wrong. I might be like paraphrasing this incorrectly. I received this piece of advice in an acting class that I took for, I don't know, I just kind of felt like it with an acting teacher named Jack Plotnick, who I since, by the way, met at Vivian's house because he's friends with Brandon. I didn't know that. But Jack is a tremendously talented acting teacher. That's Jack Plotnick. Look him up. He's great. And one thing that he said in a class several years ago, which I get the sense that he says regularly in classes, is acting is easy, and if it's not easy, you're doing too much. And I think that boils down so much of my take on being creative generally, which is the goal is for it to be easy. You know, I think there are a lot of people who have this romanticized sense of my art has to be a struggle. But I think just as you can tell that everyone working on Helluva Boss is having an incredible time, you can tell when you're receiving art that someone had a good time making, and it's a very positive experience. So I think try to make art as easy for yourself as possible. And if it's not easy, you're doing too much.
I love that advice. If you're not having fun, then yeah, that's fantastic advice. Sam, please let everyone know where they can find you on social media and anything else you'd like to promote.
Yes, I am on Twitter at Sam Haft, SamHaft. And I am also on TikTok way too much. And on TikTok, I am at Fun Comfortable. That's uncomfortable with an F in front of it.
Fantastic. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. This has been great.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
And with that, that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to visit storytellingsaga.com for all places to listen and where to follow on social media. And as always, feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next episode, in honor of Clerks 3 releasing in theaters, I will be discussing Clerks 2. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.